computer and say, hi, everybody. This is Joe Maldonado, headmaster of Griffin's Claw, the School of Practical Magic. This is our segment called Coffee and Tea with Nanu Pigon and I. Say hi, Nanu.
Hi, Nanu.
And today, with our very special guest, is Cat Gentile. Hi, Cat.
Hello.
And Cat has a business actually called A Cat Who Trains Dogs. How appropriate is that? I love that. And
That's
she
very
is,
cute.
I know, I think it's so awesome. And she is here today with her service dog, Fresno, who she's had since a puppy, who I met since he was a puppy. And Cat actually just finished transporting my new puppy, which you guys will see later. Maybe he'll wake up, and if not, we'll do a cameo shot of him. Transporting him from Washington State cross country over to here in Florida, and he is my next service dog prospect. So on that note, there's so many questions I have for you, Kat. So first of all, I kind of want to tell everybody how I met you. I was working with my service dog Coda, who was actually about 2 years old then, and I was just looking, for different things on YouTube, on Instagram, on people that how they train their dogs, and I bumped into Cathy, who had her service dog Saxon at that time. Saxon looked a lot like Coda, and I started following Cathy. Cathy, how many followers did you have on Instagram?
Saxon got up to about 10,000 at one point.
And
Yeah, my dog is more popular than me.
yeah, well, I mean, it really is all about the dog, isn't it? Right?
Of course, yeah. It was I made the Instagram just to be a log for his training, really. I
Yeah.
didn't expect there to be so many other people who had an Instagram for their dog.
Oh, and also who wanted to know how you were doing things that you were doing. I mean, I would follow you, and I would watch Saxon pick trash up, put it in a trash can, open a door for you, open and close doors in the house, get your bottled water, your medication.
Yeah.
And I think what was really outstanding is his ability to alert, as does your dog Fresno, to alert before you had like a medical situation, which always just, I'm like, I don't know how she did that, but I definitely want to learn how to do that. So here I am. You trained my other dog, Enoch, who is also an American Alsatian, and you will be popping in from California to Florida to work with our new puppy here, Baruch, who is also an American Alsatian. So people look for certain qualities when they pick a puppy. What qualities do you pick, or do you look for when you're looking for a service puppy? What's your criteria?
For a service dog specifically, I'll look for a dog who is resilient enough to hear a loud noise, or something like a popping sound or a high pitch, like a golf ball being hit, things like that. They're more sensitive to hearing. So if they just look at it and they're curious about it, you want more of curious and confident than run away and hide. You want them to be more personal. You want them to follow you more when you walk away rather than the puppies who just don't really pay attention to you. If you throw a ball, you want them to be interested in going for it, especially if you're testing for something like mobility, retrievals, and things like that. You want the dog to at least be interested in going to pick it up. You don't always necessarily need them to bring them back during your temperament test, whatever you threw, but it is a higher score and a better if they go bring the item back.
Right.
We
And
do
when you
other
when
things
and
like
when you say like temperament test, how old are the puppies when you temperament test them?
so if I'm looking at a specific litter and that's already born and it's about 4 weeks of age, I'll start monitoring the whole litter from 4 weeks to 8 weeks to make my pick when they give me that choice. If the breeder happens to be doing the temperament test, I look for things like the Volhard temperament test. You want mostly threes or fours, maybe a few fours, mostly threes to be a good service dog. So that's the Volhard temperament test specifically, which is the what I was kind of explaining just now, are the things that you do during that.
Right, right. And I'm listening to your numbers because I know when our breeders test our dogs for temperament, the perfect score is the higher number. It's a 9 or a 10.
Right.
So
I was looking at your puppy aptitude test, and it was a different scale. I think they do their own type of,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
it's a
it's like
different
zero to
breed.
10 or something like that.
Right, right.
Yeah. The one that I do, you could just, it's like 0 to 5.
Okay. And is that a standard test that, that like a standard for service puppy test?
Basically, yeah, everyone who goes for a service dog would want to go for the Volhard test because there's something on it where you open an umbrella and you put it on the floor and you want to see if the puppies go toward it or if they're scared of something like an umbrella opening and being placed on the floor. So
Right.
that's something that's excellent to test with a young dog who's going to be a service dog because they can't have that fear and they have to at least be curious.
Right. Right. Well, we certainly passed the umbrella test. It's been raining here in Florida for about 5 days straight, and
Oh,
my puppy Brooke didn't care at all. He just like, oh yeah, I see. Okay, your arm looks funny today, and then just kept on walking. So that was really good. So what other qualities? So things like coming at them suddenly, loud noises. What else do you look for? What other qualities?
you don't want them to be too resistant when you pick them up and hold them a certain way. You have to be able to mess with their paws like this. I mean, they require a lot of grooming, and a service dog goes everywhere. Imagine them stepping in gum and you're not able to touch their paws to
Yeah.
get it out. You have to be able to mess with their face like as much as you want, open their mouth,
Yeah.
just be able to touch them everywhere, basically. Yeah.
That's a good model for you right there.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great.
So that those are really good qualities to know. I know I look for temperament. Health is really huge for me.
Of
Make
course.
sure that right that they're good. And I think also depending on the type of service that this puppy or dog will do eventually too, you want to take the height and the build into consideration as well, correct?
Absolutely. And the breed.
And the breed, right, right. So for let's say mobility dogs, because that's primarily what my dog will be, what kind of breeds do you recommend, or have you seen, rather than saying recommend, have you had good progress with working for mobility?
For mobility, I would always recommend a retriever because people always need retrievals when they're like simple as dropping something or going to find something from another room. You want a especially people who are inexperienced with dogs in their owner training, I would recommend a retriever because it's already such an instinctual thing to hold things in their mouth. You don't have to start from the beginning of just desensitizing to holding something in your mouth. If they're a breed that's less likely to just instinctually pick something up.
Right, right. And you're saying golden retriever, correct?
It doesn't have to be a golden retriever.
Okay.
There's a lot of other dogs that like to hold things in their mouth, but golden retrievers are bred specifically for the roof of their mouth to be able to hold things easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gotcha, gotcha. Um, so is it possible, if for me just being an owner, living, a whole bunch of states away, to select a service dog without seeing it?
If the breeder is knowledgeable about what you're looking for and placing a working dog, then I would say yes. But if you aren't able to go interact with the dog and test the dog yourself, and the breeder is just saying, hey, I picked you the calmest, what seems like the most confident puppy to me, that would just be an opinion, and I wouldn't trust that.
Right, right, right. And I must interject here because I absolutely love the breed that I have. I live in Florida, and our breeder was in Washington State, and she was just amazing to work with. Not just doing all the temperament tests and health tests above and beyond, doing any kind of, health issues that we came upon, but also FaceTiming and allowing me to interact, through FaceTime and watching how this puppy grows, and knowing specifically that this particular dog is destined, that I'm looking for is destined to do service dog work. So it's not just a companion dog that's lovely. It is going to have to do certain things. So I think that's really really important. You know, that anybody that's looking for, you know, a service puppy and is not there, that they have that relationship with their breeder. Um, are there, let's see, my next question, are there primary commands you train when you first get your puppy? So you just got this puppy, you know, he's brand spanking new. What are the first things that you do within the first few weeks of having him, her?
Within the first few weeks, I would recommend letting the dog just be a dog. I wouldn't, I don't teach any vocal commands or expect them to follow anything like that. If they're already doing things like natural body movements and I'm able to lure food in front of their face and get them to do something like a sit, I'll mark it, but I'm not going to ask them or command it of them so early. I just want to make sure that they're in a balanced state of mind and able to be a dog during those crucial learning stages up until, like 20, 22 weeks. Just
Okay.
let them be a dog, explore, safely socialize, just let them take things in and just mostly praise for calm state of mind.
Right. And what about like things like walking on a leash? You do train that, or you work with that, or
Definitely
how
with
do you do
walking
that?
on a leash, but I would consider that socialization more because
Okay.
it's getting used to having something around their neck. And with walking, you're not expecting them to follow a command in a certain amount of time and to correlate it with a word or with the hand signal.
Okay. Okay. And what kind of equipment would you suggest as a puppy? Because we're talking about service dog puppies. What kind of equipment would you suggest to be used? Harnesses, you know, collars, specific type of leashes.
Definitely get them used to wearing their vest, even if they're not going out working yet. Because once they become a certain age and you have them put something over their head or something like that, they could be fearful of it. That's just something you have to work through.
Okay.
Definitely get, if you're gonna have your dog wear a collar, um, with tags on it and things like that, I would say get them used to that immediately.
Okay.
I always use slip leashes, so I get them used to a slip leash immediately, and then other tools like brushes and things like that. They don't have to wear all the time, but
Right.
just getting used to those tools too.
Right.
A Dremel for their nails, whatever
Oh,
you're
okay.
going to be using to cut their nails. Getting them used to being brushed, their teeth brushed, um, cleaning the ears. It's just things
Like
like that.
maintenance things, everyday
But gear
maintenance.
wise,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
I know that I just want to share Cathy, as I said, transported our puppy Baruch across the United States via many airports. And
yeah.
he was not actually, he wasn't not leash trained. I mean, he's a puppy, he was a little guy. Little but not so little because he weighed a good amount. So can you just share that? How did you stay calm and get him from one end of the airport to the other, and not pass out? Because he weighed, probably at that point, he probably weighed high 30s, I think,
Yes,
mid to high
definitely.
30s when you had him, which is like
So
almost half your weight.
yeah, so I'll give a recap of the story. So when I had Burra in Washington, and we were working on leash work all night when I had him, staying in the hotel, hanging out. We went up and down the hallways. So the next morning, I go to the airport. I was able to walk him down the hotel lobby. He was doing excellent. Walked across the street to the airport. Still doing great. He was following. I was getting this whole video for Joe, like, look how great your puppy's doing. He's following me. And in the video, you can see the moment of hesitation when this person goes by with the luggage, and he was just, nope, I don't want to do that. And so I didn't have any luggage with me. So he hadn't seen that before we got to the airport. I just had my backpack with me. So that we're trying to walk into the airport, and now he suddenly doesn't know how to walk on a leash anymore. And I'm like, okay, listen, we have to make this flight because Joe needs us back from Washington. So I couldn't take the time to make sure that we just kept walking through the airport and just do pressure and release, which is what I would have done with him with the leash. It would have been tedious, would have taken a while, just confidence building around the luggage. But I did have to pick him up and run him to my gate just because I didn't know how big the airport was. So I
Right.
didn't know how much time I realistically had to
Yeah.
work with him on it.
Yeah. So how are you staying calm so he doesn't pick up your stress?
That's been a practice because especially working with dogs who are going to be psychiatric and around the handlers who also are freaking out, I've had to really work on just breathe, take a moment. If you can't keep going, because if you do just keep going, it's potentially going to mess up the dog. And I've learned to definitely not do that. Even if I have to stop and meditate, I will do that rather than even having the chance of the dog recognizing my breathing changes or something and correlating that with being stressed, and I should display this same thing or be a reflection of that energy.
Right. So let me just take that one step further. So how do you step in or segue into, you have your puppy, and that's fine because you're trying to stay calm because you have a situation, but how do you train to alert for things like stress and heart rate going up and blood pressure and AFib? How do you train for a dog to be aware for that of that?
For those things, some dogs pick it up naturally, but for those who don't, I would recommend that you get a saliva sample, which is usually hard to do yourself when you're going through a medical episode, even if it's just a spike of anxiety. So if there's someone else around to do it, I always recommend for the caretaker, the person who's around, to recognize when you're about to be going through something and, you know, it's kind of awkward, but to
Yeah.
swab your saliva. Basically, you save that in a jar. You can put it in the freezer for a couple of months if you preserve it properly. And the same way that you would do something like hide the dog's food bowl and they go find it, you start with that, and you could eventually move up to things that are more complex, like you hide a spice, something like I start with cinnamon usually.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could do things more complex, like actual saliva samples, and I will label each sample with the chemical that was being secreted at the time. So there's isoprene, which is related to blood sugar, and there's cortisol when the body's in distress, and that could include pain, anxiety, panic.
Mm-hmm.
Just whenever the body is stressing out, cortisol is secreted. So I will label the jar. Heart rate was this, blood pressure was this. I will always mix in ones that are actually negative, just to know if the dog's actually going for the scent. So I could put it under cups sometimes. You know, the cup game
Yep.
where you move the cups around. So I do that with the dogs too. And I'll start with maybe 2 cups and I'll build up sometimes to as much as 10.
Wow.
And they have
Ten
to
cups, one on
find,
top of each other?
no, so they'll all be laid out
Oh,
in
10
front of
laid
me.
out. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and some will be negative, some will have nothing under it, and I tell them to find, and they have, and that's how you also shape the alert you want. So if I have under the cup the isoprene and I want my blood sugar alert to be a paw, when they go to that cup that has that smell, that's when they would paw. If they go to the cortisol cup, because I'm working with the cortisol scent and I want to nudge,
Yeah.
they have to nudge that cup. And
Right.
that's also how I learned to shape. It will teach them to learn how to do that exact alert.
So, and I know we're talking mostly about puppies, and I remember you saying, so I talked to you many years ago about Saxon, and I remember you saying, well, I just blow a lot in his face. So, as a puppy, is that something that we can start doing since they're so young now? Just blow in their face,
Yes,
and
whenever
what do
you're
you do
feeling
when you blow in their
symptomatic.
face?
Well, if they show any type of interest, then you encourage that type of alert that you want, the same way that you would with the cup. If they were to approach the cup and they knew that that was the scent they're looking for, and then what do I do? You give them a second to see what they'll do,
Okay.
and they go for a nudge, mark it. But so when I was training Saxon, I didn't know exactly how to do scent training with saliva samples or anything like that. So when I was feeling symptomatic, I would just blow in his face,
Mhm.
and then I would shape that response of what he did.
Okay. So you blow, and if it was, something with high anxiety, for example, and you're blowing at that time, and he would come over maybe and lick your face, then you would reward that with a treat, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, whatever they're most motivated with. I mean, Saxon, he wasn't more treats. He was just more of give him a little butt rubs. He was
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah. And then Fresno, how did you work with Fresno?
Fresno is very, very food motivated, but I
Okay.
had a lot more experience when I got Fresno, and he actually was able to pick up a lot from Saxon because I tandem trained before I pulled Saxon.
Yeah.
So having Saxon around and seeing him respond and alert to what I did.
Yeah.
So social learning for dogs is one of the best ways for them to learn is from one another.
Right.
So he would watch what Saxon did.
Yeah.
And then if I had 5 dogs with me at one time, they would all do what Saxon did. I actually have a
Funny.
video of one time I start crying and I had my hands in front of my face,
Yeah.
and Saxon comes to nudge my hands out of my face, and you see 5 other dogs come up just to try to do exactly what Saxon is doing, just surrounding me, trying to do exactly what he's doing. They're
Wow.
so young and they don't exactly know why,
Yeah.
but you eventually they pick up on why and when they are supposed to consistently do that behavior.
Right, right. Wow. That I can only imagine 5 of them doing that. Um, so, how often do you use treats if you have a dog that's food motivated?
I'll always carry it on me for the smell, even if I'm not giving it to them. It's because it's good to have something to just grab the nose really quick, especially with a service dog. If you're out in public, even at any age, you can always come across something that is new for you or the dog, and it might just be something that
Yeah.
they have to just be reminded of, that it's okay and we can keep going. So if I can't get their attention with sound or something, I'm not just going to keep standing there going, Fresno, 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 focus. That would be pointless. So if I just
Yeah.
pulled something out really quick and I just waved it in front of his nose, I don't even have to give it to him.
Right.
So I wouldn't say frequently because I don't want to depend on that with anything, but I will say that I always have something on me,
Yeah.
even if I'm not going to end up giving it to the dog.
Right. Right. Got it. That's yeah. Just walk around with a pouch and a poop bag. Those are two
Yes.
good two good things to have when you have this. How long does it take to train a puppy? Or train a dog to be your
That
service
would
dog?
depend on what you're training for, because something
Right.
like scent training would take a lot longer to solidify. So for that, I'd usually estimate year and a half to two. For mobility, they're not done until 2 because you just start with bracing and
Yeah.
things that they can actually do after x-rays at the age of 2.
That was my next question.
Something,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, so like a psychiatric dog, if you're not needing things like alerts prior to feeling it and you need things like responses, I would say 6 to 9 months.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So they do mobility dogs would need X-rays, right? To make sure they're structurally
Yes.
sound. Um, and then what about you hear people say certification. I want my service dog to be certified. Can you just explain that whole
Yes.
concept
So
of certification?
I think that people started to think there was a certification because some programs that do place dogs, they say that they're certified just because they're up to standards for the program. And there are programs that give out IDs and things like that after they place the dog with a handler.
Mhm.
But there is no official certification for a service dog to show for proof or anything like that. What makes a service dog is the training that they have and the tasks that they know to mitigate the handler's disability.
Right. So I know there's a discrepancy. For example, if a dog going into a store and the store owner causes a riff or whatever, and the situation has to go to court. I mean, I think I remember reading that as long as you show what your disability is and how your dog is of service for that disability, that's really all that's required. Is that correct?
Yes, and that is a reason why a lot of people do have an Instagram for their dog.
Oh, okay.
Most of the time it's for their own tracking, but it does help in those cases to show that you've been training the dog for this long and this is how much work and effort you put in this many environments, and it's just a public log.
Yeah, yeah.
So always keeping a training log, even if it's not something that's public, is always helpful in those situations.
Yeah, that's really excellent. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type them into the chat window. And if not, then we have a few more minutes left to chat. We will disconnect from recording, and then everybody that's on this call, that is on this class, will have an opportunity to interact with Cathy directly and ask any questions that you may have. Um, I know, it's one of the hardest things I think is to put, a dog, a puppy, that evolves into dogdom, through training, and then, realize that that dog is really not qualified for the type of task, called washing the dog. It is not qualified to do the task that you wanted the dog to do. Are there certain things that you do, a test type of thing to evaluate whether that dog actually should be washed from that specific task or as a service dog? I mean, what kind of things do you do?
Sometimes you don't know that the dog isn't good for the specific job until they're okay. Actually, let me rephrase that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you'll find out that a dog is better at doing a specific dog based on the person that they are matched with and bond with. So sometimes after a person is already matched with a dog, they will say, my dog isn't performing as a psychiatric service dog. And sometimes it's as simple as they're not bonded enough. So we might think they don't want to do that job, but then once they're rematched with another person, they could start doing tasks that they were not even willing to try for that other person because they didn't want to help that other person.
Yeah.
So there are things to know that a dog isn't good for a specific thing like mobility. I wouldn't place a dog who absolutely hates holding things in their mouth with someone who primarily needs retrievals. And I wouldn't place a dog who's like a shepherd or something with someone who has high anxiety and has to keep up with, because everyone has to keep up with training after a dog is placed. They're going to test their limits no matter what.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't recommend placing a dog who's already prone to such anxiety and is more sensitive with someone who's needing a psychiatric service dog.
Right, right. And you just recently took another pup that you're training for somebody. You don't have a picture, but can you tell us again why you chose who you chose and a little bit about him?
So I just got a Bernedoodle, so it's a Bernese Mountain Dog mixed with a poodle,
Uh-huh.
and he is estimated to be between 70 and 80 pounds. The person who originally was supposed to have him, she needed mobility and psychiatric tests. So he is curious, confident, not overconfident, because that can sometimes be an issue, but he's resilient to things. He moves on fast. He's in the moment. He's he learns fast from the other dogs because he's always watching. He's observant. Um, Very tolerant. He likes to follow, but not in an excessive and needy type of way,
Mm-hmm.
because that can become really bad for service dogs since they usually already get separation anxiety. And so his name is Dante, and right now we're just feeling him out to see what he would be best at, because now I don't have someone already lined up who wants him and needs him for a specific thing. So now I'm just going to go with seeing what he's best at. He's definitely going to be mobility because he's going to be big enough for it.
Mm-hmm.
So he likes to go pick things up. He's not at the point of bringing it back yet, but he likes to walk around and carry things. So
Mm-hmm.
just praising for that, so long as he's not chewing on things.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, he's really
And
great.
what about just have one more question, then we have one question here and then we'll have to sign off. But what about lining up or putting your dog, like I have a pack of 5 dogs. So what about trying to bond this puppy with me? I mean, keeping him with me versus having him play with the other dogs. What is your take on that?
Keeping him with you, but not always.
Okay.
he's definitely have that time where he's separate, so he doesn't think that you guys are one, because then it'll be a confidence issue eventually, because he's not his own entity, he's a part of you. So then he's apart from you, he doesn't know how to make decisions, what to feel or anything, but
Okay.
to whine or cry and just want to be with you.
So, so half and half. Let him play with the
Yeah, so
dogs,
like
but let him
so
be
like I
with
was
you.
saying, kind of when I started off, is just at this time letting him be a dog is really good, but also that bonding time is really good. So half and half.
Half and half. Okay. And then our question is, I took Finnegan in public as a dog in training. He follows me everywhere. He did great, but is afraid of entering buildings and people. What do I do? I do want a friendly service dog.
Afraid of people. So for that, when a service dog is wearing a vest, it already says do not pet, do not touch.
Right.
So the dog has to actually, you have to let them build up their curiosity. So I always tell people, if you tell your dog go say hi to people as an attempt to make them more comfortable with people,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to work. If
Mm-hmm.
you're still letting people approach when the dog is nervous, it's not going to work. If you have to let the dog build up the curiosity again to go approach a person, praise for that. Like make that's why the person shouldn't look at them or interact. Just let
Right.
them go explore people again. Get to start over. I don't want him friendly. Wait,
She
what?
didn't. She doesn't want him friendly. She's saying. I don't know. She doesn't want him friendly. So that would to me mean that she does not want him to interact with people, but she doesn't want him afraid of people.
Yeah, we never want a service dog to be to the point of walking up to people and asking to be pet.
Right.
They're obviously not supposed to do that,
Right.
but also they can't be fearful of people to the point where someone approaches you and they want to scurry away.
Right. Right.
What
Right.
did she say?
And
For
and so
the fear of walking in buildings, though, like Burra and his
yeah.
sliding doors.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
well, it's like it's suitcases or my laundry hamper on wheels. That definitely is like, oh, is that another suitcase that's moving? So
Basically
we're
the same.
working on that. I'm sorry, we're running out of time for recording, but I'm going to stop recording and then tell everybody else that's on the call to stay tuned, and we'll have some more questions with Cathy. So thank you for coming, everybody. All our events are recorded. This will be up on our YouTube channel.